the family of Muriel McKay, who was kidnapped and murdered back in 1969, say they've been given new leads following an appeal for information. This, of course, is a very, very complex case. I've been working on this story with my colleague Louise Parry, and she explains the background.
Muriel was actually Australian, and she'd moved to London with her husband Alec McKay because he was the deputy to Rupert Murdoch, obviously also Australian. And Mr. Murdoch had been seen on television in the UK speaking about his new newspaper, The Sun. And a group of criminals saw that report and they thought, well, he looks like a wealthy guy, and they thought he would be a good person to try and extort some money from. So they hatched this crazy plan to kidnap Rupert Murdoch's wife. But what happened is he'd loaned the McKay family his Rolls Royce at the time. So these men followed the wrong car all the way to Muriel McKay's front door. And she was abducted from her home in Wimbledon and driven round London and out to East Hertfordshire to a farm called Rooks Farm near Bishop Stortford. Now, obviously, these guys were in newspapers. There was a huge media circus and a massive police operation, but it still took weeks to trace her kidnappers down to Rooks Farm. And in the end, they had enough evidence to convict two brothers, Nizamuddin and Arthur Hussein, but they couldn't find Muriel's body. So in fact, it was one of the first ever murder convictions to take place without a body back in 1970.
And of course, a case of mistaken identity. Now, let me just remind you, last week on this show, we told you about a £1 million reward that was offered to find Muriel's body. I spoke to Muriel's grandson, Mark Dyer. Mark, the reward is £1 million. I suppose the hope is, because this is such a vast amount of money, that will entice somebody somewhere to come forward with key information.
Yeah, I mean, it's astonishing that the family have been pushed into this position, and a benefactor came forward and said, look, I'll help. And we have now the money available to us to pay that reward or ransom.
But you've got £1 million for anybody who comes forward with information. It's a vast amount of money. It's pretty rare for this type of reward to be offered. Where has the inspiration come from?
My mother had seen a film a while back, a number of years ago, Ransom, with Mel Gibson. Him being Australian and my mother being Australian, Diane and Ian obviously were Australian family. So they thought that was quite an interesting idea to turn it on its head and offer the ransom payment. I mean, now it's too late. My grandmother's dead. But to offer the ransom payment that they tried to offer again for the remains of Muriel, my grandmother. It's a long shot, but it's a big statement.
And in that film with Mel Gibson, for those that haven't seen it, he's a millionaire and his son is kidnapped, and he sat there doing media interviews with the money in front of him saying, if you have information, phone this number. So essentially what you're doing right now, today.
It is.
Well, this week I've been to meet Mark again because I'm absolutely delighted to say there have been significant new leads following this appeal. Earlier, we heard how Muriel could be buried behind a shop in Bethnal Green, but that's not the only lead that they've received. We're back in Hertfordshire outside a care home. Who have you been to see today?
Well, I've been to see a wonderful woman who's been crying a bit and really quite shaken up. She says that every Christmas for the last 50 odd years she talks about Muriel, and her daughter was with her and said it's not just Christmas, it's other times too. She said, yes, I think about her a lot, which brings me to why. Well, she was staring out of her window one night at the age of 17 years old, and a guy who used to supply things for the farm or things for the small holding to the Husseins, who knew the Husseins well, rented the house next door. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, she was woken up by thumping and saw, sounds almost theatrical, a storm lamp. I don't know what a storm lamp is, but I guess it's a torch of some kind, with a guy digging for quite a long time. Why you would dig at 1 o'clock in the morning.
And again, there's that connection to the Hussein brothers.
Again, that is, yeah.
So somebody was digging at 1 o'clock in the morning. Did she report that to the police at the time?
Well, funny enough, she did. Her father did. And the police took it very seriously, and they dug. But they dug the wrong place. What happened, she came back from school, and Dad said, oh, well, they've dug, and showed them where they dug. It's the wrong place. It's not that staircase, it's the other staircase.
The police, I presume, never came back.
Never came back. And we've now been shown the correct staircase. She is happy to come from her care home with her daughter. There's her daughter there. And and show the scanning team exactly where to scan.
And that's somebody, again, who's on end-of-life care. Why would they waste their time at the end of their life to tell you this information?
Certainly, and I mean, that in itself is awfully sad, but it just proves one thing. You know, when you are in that period of your existence, you start to soul search, and if you can tell anybody, and this is what I was reaching out, anybody out there, it could be you, and it is, these people have come forward and they're desperate to tell us, and there's no jeopardy. And I think I've experienced in the first call, which was the one in Bethnal Green, there was fear of jeopardy, and she kept saying my father wasn't that bad, and I don't want to be tarnished by him. And I said, no, there's no jeopardy. Look, we're welcoming you. You know, we're welcoming you. There is no punishment. This is gone past all that. All it is we want to know, and we all want closure. Surely your father would have regretted being involved, or even assisting these people. What an awful thing to have been dragged into.
I know a lot has happened in the last few years, but the information you're receiving would appear to be coming from a really good place. Do you feel yourself as a family, you're getting closer and closer as we sit here right now?
If you look at this as a game, which is not, but if you look, you have to have that kind of mental state. We are definitely getting around the board, and we are throwing high number dice now, and we're meeting people who are genuine, completely genuine, and really tangible leads with links to their same brothers, both of them, and incredible, fantastic news.
I have got so much respect for this family. I am so desperate for them to get answers and justice, and that number again, that £1 million reward remains open. The number is 0333 041 1585. I was saying to Mark the other day, and just to be very open with you, there was a potential last year for me looking at voluntary redundancy at the BBC. But this story and this campaign by the family, I really want to see it through. And if there's anything that we can do by using this position we're in at the moment, we will do it. Because they just keep coming back. And can you imagine that feeling for Mark, his mum Diane, his uncle Ian, to finally find Muriel, who was last seen back in 1969? It would just be incredible. And I fully believe that they are getting closer and closer. And I think they will find Muriel. If you have any information as well, you can email me, justin.dealey@bbc.co.uk.